The silence wasn't what broke Maya's heart that evening at the charity gala. It was the way 12-year-old Emma Sterling sat perfectly still in her designer dress, watching hundreds of adults pretend she didn't exist, while her billionaire father Richard Sterling worked the room, shaking hands and commanding attention with his booming voice. His daughter remained invisible, a ghost in plain sight, surrounded by people too uncomfortable or too important to acknowledge. The girl who lived in a world without sound. Maya Rodriguez had seen enough. As a pediatric nurse who spent her days communicating with children who couldn't always use words, she recognized the hollow look in Emma's eyes. It was the same expression she'd witnessed in countless hospital rooms, the resigned acceptance of being overlooked, misunderstood, and ultimately forgotten. The opulent ballroom of the Four Seasons buzzed with conversations about tax, write-offs, and networking opportunities. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across marble floors where Chicago's elite mingled, their laughter echoing off gilded walls. Maya felt distinctly out of place in her thrift store evening gown, having only attended because her hospital had received a last-minute invitation. She'd come hoping to secure funding for their new children's wing, but watching Emma's isolation made her original mission seem trivial. Richard Sterling dominated every conversation he entered, his presence magnetic and commanding. Forbes had recently featured him on their cover, dubbing him the infrastructure king after his latest billion-dollar deal. But despite his public success, Maya noticed how his eyes would dart nervously toward his daughter before quickly returning to his business associates. There was love there, buried beneath layers of helplessness and corporate conditioning. Emma sat at table 7, methodically arranging her silverware while adults at neighboring tables discussed her father's empire as if she were furniture. Maya watched a well-meaning woman lean over and speak loudly at Emma, apparently believing volume could bridge the communication gap. The girl's face remained pleasantly blank, having long since perfected the art of appearing engaged while actually being completely excluded. Unable to watch any longer, Maya approached Emma's table. She didn't announce herself or make a grand gesture. Instead, she simply sat down and began signing. "Hello? My name is Maya. I love your dress. That shade of blue reminds me of the ocean." Emma's fork clattered against her plate. Her eyes widened with shock, then filled with tears that she quickly blinked away. For a moment, she just stared at Maya's hands as if they were performing magic. "You can sign?" Emma's own hands moved with elegant precision, her face transforming with an emotion Maya recognized immediately: hope. "I can. I work with children at the hospital, many of whom use sign language. I've been watching you tonight, and I thought you might like some real conversation." Emma's smile could have powered the entire ballroom. "Nobody here knows how to talk to me except my interpreter, but Dad sent her home early because he said it looked too clinical for the photos." Maya's heart clenched. She glanced across the room where Richard Sterling was deep in conversation with 2 senators, his animated gestures emphasizing whatever point he was making. The irony wasn't lost on her. A man who commanded attention through his voice had a daughter who commanded silence through hers. "Tell me about yourself," Maya signed. "What do you love to do?" For the next hour, Emma came alive. Her hands danced as she described her passion for astronomy, her love of baking cookies for the household staff, and her dream of becoming a veterinarian. She told Maya about her private tutor, her collection of vintage telescopes, and how she'd taught herself to read lips in 3 languages. The girl was brilliant, funny, and hungry for genuine connection. "Most people think I'm stupid because I can't hear," Emma confided, her signs becoming more animated as her comfort grew. "They either ignore me completely or talk to me like I'm 5 years old. My dad tries, but he gets frustrated when I don't understand him perfectly." Maya felt a familiar anger rising, the same emotion she experienced whenever she encountered ignorance about disabilities in her professional life. "You're one of the smartest 12-year-olds I've ever met," she signed back. "Anyone who can't see that isn't worth your time." Their conversation was interrupted when Richard Sterling appeared at their table, his brow furrowed with concern and curiosity. "Emma, is everything all right here?" His voice carried the protective edge of a father, though Maya noticed he didn't attempt to include his daughter in the question. Emma's hands moved rapidly as she turned to her father. but his expression remained blank. He understood none of it. Maya stood and extended her hand. "Mr. Sterling, I'm Maya Rodriguez. I was just having a wonderful conversation with your daughter about her interest in astronomy." "You were talking with her?" Richard's confusion was evident. "I mean, she doesn't really... That is, communication is challenging for Emma." "Actually, Emma communicates beautifully," Maya replied gently. "She was just telling me about her theory regarding the possibility of life on Europa. Quite sophisticated thinking, really." Richard looked between Maya and his daughter, something shifting in his expression. Emma signed something to Maya, who nodded and turned back to him. "Emma wants to know if you'd like her to teach you some basic signs. She says she's been wanting to show you how to say, 'I love you' properly." For a moment, the powerful businessman looked vulnerable, almost fragile. She wants to teach me?" Emma nodded eagerly, patting the chair beside her. As Richard sat down, Maya realized she was witnessing something profound, a father and daughter finding each other across a divide that had seemed insurmountable moments before. "The sign for 'I love you' combines 3 letters, Emma began, her father watching intently as she demonstrated. "I, L, and Y like this." She showed him the hand position, then guided his fingers into the same shape. Richard's eyes filled with tears as he made the sign back to his daughter. Emma threw her arms around his neck, and for the first time all evening, the noise of the ballroom seemed to fade away. Over the following months, Maya received regular updates from the Sterling family. Richard had hired a full-time ASL instructor and was learning alongside Emma during their newly instituted daily conversation hours. He'd also established a foundation providing sign language, education, and deaf awareness programs to schools across the country. Emma sent Maya videos of her father's improving sign language skills, along with photos of the adaptive technology they'd installed throughout their home. But the most touching message came 6 months later, a formal invitation, written in Emma's careful handwriting, inviting Maya to Richard's first public speech delivered entirely in sign language, a keynote address at a conference for deaf and hard-of-hearing entrepreneurs. The day of the speech, Maya sat in the front row watching Richard. Sterling commanded attention not through his voice but through his hands. Emma stood beside him, beaming with pride as her father advocated for disability inclusion in corporate America. When he finished, the standing ovation was thunderous, but Maya noticed that Emma felt it through the vibrations in the floor rather than heard it through her ears. After the event, Emma ran to Maya and signed, "Thank you for seeing me when everyone else looked through me." But Maya knew the truth. She hadn't rescued Emma that night at the charity gala. She'd simply recognized what had always been there, a brilliant, loving girl who deserved to be heard even without sound. Sometimes the most profound conversations happen in complete silence, and sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone is the simple acknowledgement of their voice, however they choose to use it. In a world that often moves too fast to notice those who communicate differently, Maya had learned that kindness isn't about grand gestures or dramatic interventions. It's about sitting down, paying attention, and choosing to connect across whatever barriers might exist. And sometimes, when we open ourselves to truly listening, even with our eyes, instead of our ears, we discover that the most important things people have to say transcend sound entirely.